Jake Morrison stared at the red warning light flashing on his control panel. The colony administrator had seen many emergency alerts during his 15 years on New Eden, but never one like this. Unknown ships were coming toward their world and they were moving fast. "Lisa, get to the command center now," Jake spoke into his communication device. Lisa Carter was the best military coordinator they had, and if trouble was coming, he needed her advice. Within minutes, Lisa ran into the room, followed by Ben Hughes, their chief engineer. Both looked worried as they studied the sensor readings on the main screen. "How many ships?" Lisa asked, her voice steady despite the situation. 12 vessels, maybe more," Ben replied, adjusting the scanner controls. "They're using technology I've never seen before. The energy signatures are completely different from our ships." Jake felt his stomach tighten. For 15 years, New Eden had remained hidden from the rest of the galaxy. They had chosen this remote location specifically because no one would find them here. The colony was supposed to be their secret training ground, their preparation site for the war they knew would come someday. "Are they human ships?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "No," Ben shook his head. "Definitely not human. The design is too different, and their engines work in ways our technology cannot." Lisa moved to the tactical display and began entering commands. "I'm calling all defense teams to their positions. Ryan Blake and his security forces are already moving to the weapon stations." Jake nodded. Ryan Blake was their colony defense chief, a former military officer who had trained every person on New Eden in combat techniques. If these unknown visitors came with bad intentions, Ryan would be ready for them. The three leaders watched as the alien ships came closer to their world. The vessels were beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shine with their own light. They moved through space like graceful sea creatures swimming through water. "They're trying to communicate with us," Amy Foster announced as she entered the command center. Amy was their communications specialist, and she had been monitoring all radio frequencies since the alert began. "What are they saying?" Jake asked. "I don't know yet. The language is completely new, but Dr. Carl Stone is working on it. He thinks he can figure out some basic meanings if we give him time." Jake looked at Lisa, who was still studying the tactical display. Her expression was serious, and he knew she was thinking the same thing he was. These aliens had found their secret colony, and that could only mean trouble. On the alien ships, Navigator Veltar stood on the bridge of his vessel, looking at the world below. His people, the Zephyrians, had been exploring the galaxy for many generations. They had met dozens of different species, and all of them had been peaceful. This new discovery should have been exciting, but something felt wrong. "What do the scanners show?" Veltar asked his science officer, Kethmore. "The inhabitants appear to be humanoid, but their activities are unusual," Kethmore replied, checking his instruments. "I'm detecting weapons testing, combat training, and what appears to be military construction projects." Veltar frowned. In all their years of exploration, the Zephyrians had never found a species that seemed so focused on warfare. Most civilizations they discovered were peaceful farmers, artists, or scientists. "These humans seem different. Are they building weapons?" Veltar asked. "Yes, and powerful ones. I'm seeing energy signatures that suggest they have technology capable of destroying entire fleets of ships." On New Eden's surface, Dr. Kelly Wright was running between different research stations, checking on the progress of their latest projects. Kelly was the colony's lead scientist, and she had spent years developing new defensive technologies. When the alien alert came, she knew their work would be put to the test. "How are the energy shields?" she asked Alan Torres, one of her top physicists. "Ready for testing, but we haven't had time for a full trial run," Alan replied nervously. "And the quantum torpedoes?" "Functional, but we only have 12 of them completed." Kelly felt frustrated. They had been working for years to prepare for this day, but there was still so much left to do. The colony had been established by former military personnel, engineers and scientists who believed that humanity would eventually face threats from space. Intelligence reports from Earth had suggested that hostile alien empires existed somewhere in the galaxy. So New Eden was created as a forward research base disguised as a simple farming colony. "Dr. Wright," Amy Foster's voice came through the communication system. "We're getting more alien transmissions. Dr. Stone thinks they're trying to say something about peace, but he's not certain." Kelly felt a moment of hope. Maybe these aliens were friendly, but her military training told her to be careful. In space, assuming good intentions could get everyone killed. Ryan Blake stood in the main weapons control room, watching his teams prepare their defenses. Every person on New Eden had military training, even the farmers and teachers. They had all come here knowing that someday they might have to fight for their lives. "All missile batteries are ready," reported Gary Miller, one of his technicians. "The new plasma cannons are online and our fighter ships are prepared for launch." Ryan nodded, but he felt worried. Their weapons were powerful, but they had never been tested against alien technology. If these visitors were hostile, the colonists would have to rely on their training and hope their preparations had been enough. Back on the Zephyrian ships, cultural analyst Nethiel was studying the data they had collected about the human colony. What she saw disturbed her greatly. "These humans appear to be a warrior species," she told Navigator Veltar. "Even their children are being trained in combat techniques. Their entire society seems organized around warfare." Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. The Zephyrians had always been peaceful, and they had assumed that all intelligent species would eventually choose peace over war. Finding a civilization that seemed dedicated to fighting was their worst nightmare. "Should we contact the Galactic Council?" Kethmore asked. "Not yet," Veltar replied. "We need to understand these humans better before we make any decisions." As both sides continued to study each other, neither realized that they were making the same mistake. The humans saw the alien ships and assumed they were invaders. The aliens saw the human weapons and assumed they were conquerors. Both groups were preparing for a fight that neither side actually wanted. Navigator Veltar stood before the large viewing screen on his ship's bridge, watching the human colony below with growing concern. For 3 days now, his team had been observing the inhabitants of New Eden, and everything they saw made them more worried. "Show me the latest scans," Veltar said to Science Officer Kethmore. The screen changed to display detailed images of the human activities. Veltar could see groups of humans training with powerful energy weapons that glowed with dangerous light. In another area, massive machines were digging underground tunnels that looked like military bunkers. Near the colony's edge, humans were testing what appeared to be orbital bombardment systems, firing beams of energy into empty space. "This is worse than we thought," Kethmore said quietly. "These humans are not just preparing for war. They are preparing for massive destruction." Veltar nodded sadly. The Zephyrians had hoped to find another peaceful species to add to their catalog of civilizations. Instead, they had discovered what seemed to be the most militaristic race they had ever encountered. "Look at this," cultural analyst Nethiel said, pointing to another section of the screen. "Even their farming equipment has been modified with weapons. Their tractors have energy shields and their storage buildings are reinforced like military fortresses." The Zephyrians watched as human children ran through obstacle courses that looked like combat training exercises. They saw teachers instructing students in what appeared to be tactical movement and battlefield communications. Even the colony's medical facilities seemed designed to handle large numbers of battle casualties. "I have never seen anything like this," Nethiel continued. "Their entire society is built around warfare. They must be planning to attack other worlds." Down on New Eden's surface, communications specialist Amy Foster was having her own troubles understanding the aliens. She sat in a room filled with electronic equipment, trying to decode the strange signals coming from the ships above. "Any progress?" Dr. Carl Stone asked as he entered the room. Carl was the colony's best linguist, and he had been working with Amy for days to understand the alien language. "Some," Amy replied, adjusting her headphones. "I think I understand a few basic concepts. They keep using words that might mean peace and observe, but there are other words I cannot figure out." Carl studied the patterns on Amy's computer screen. "This language is completely different from anything humans have encountered. It uses sound frequencies we can barely hear, and some of their words seem to change meaning based on how they are spoken." "What worries me," Amy said, "is that they keep mentioning something that sounds like council and report. It makes me think they are gathering information to send back to some kind of government." Carl nodded grimly. "That could mean they are scouts for a larger invasion force." In the colony's main conference room, Administrator Jake Morrison was meeting with his top advisors. The stress of the situation was showing on everyone's faces. "What do we know about their capabilities?" Jake asked Security Chief Ryan Blake. "Their ships are more advanced than anything Earth has ever built," Ryan replied. "Our sensors show they have energy weapons that could destroy our entire colony in minutes." Their shields are so strong that our best weapons might not even scratch them. Dr. Kelly Wright leaned forward in her chair. But they haven't attacked us yet. Maybe they are waiting for something. Or maybe they are studying our defenses before they strike, Lisa Carter suggested. A smart military commander would want to understand our capabilities before beginning an assault. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had to make decisions that could affect not just the 1,000 people on New Eden, but potentially all of humanity. If these aliens were hostile and learned about Earth's location, it could mean the end of human civilization. Have we sent any messages to Earth? Jake asked. Yes, Lisa replied, but it will take months for our signals to reach them, and months more for any help to arrive. We are on our own. Ben Hughes, the chief engineer, spoke up from his position near the technical displays. I've been analyzing their ship movements, and I think they are positioning themselves for some kind of coordinated action. Their formation looks like a classic military deployment. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. If the aliens were preparing to attack, New Eden would have to defend itself with whatever weapons and defenses they had ready. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian flagship, Navigator Veltar was receiving reports from observation teams that had been studying different parts of the human colony. The humans have established what appears to be a command and control center, reported scanner operator Pelvarn. They are coordinating activities across their entire settlement in a way that suggests military organization. What about their technology? Veltar asked. Advanced but focused entirely on destruction, Pelvarn replied. They have developed weapons systems we have never seen before. Some of their energy projectors are powerful enough to damage our ships if used effectively. Veltar felt a deep sadness. The Zephyrians had always believed that intelligence naturally led to peace. They could not understand why any species would choose to focus so much energy on developing ways to hurt others. Navigator, Communications Officer Yelmeth interrupted. We are receiving signals from the human settlement. They appear to be trying to communicate with us. What are they saying? The message is simple, but the tone suggests they are prepared to defend themselves. They want to know our intentions. Veltar considered his options. The Zephyrians were peaceful by nature, but they also had a responsibility to protect the other civilizations in their part of the galaxy. If these humans were as aggressive as they appeared, something had to be done to stop them. Back on New Eden, Amy Foster was listening to the latest alien transmission when she heard something that made her heart skip. Dr. Stone, she called urgently. I think they just mentioned something about bringing more ships. Carl rushed to her station and listened to the recording. You're right. And I think that word there means many or large number. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. They're calling for reinforcements. Within minutes, this information reached Jake Morrison and his command team. The implication was clear. The aliens were preparing for a major operation against New Eden. How much time do we have? Jake asked. Based on their technology, Ben Hughes estimated, other ships could arrive within days. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Begin implementing Protocol 7. All non-essential personnel to the underground shelters. All weapon systems to full readiness. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. As both sides prepared for what they believed would be an inevitable conflict, neither realized that they were trapped in a web of misunderstanding. The humans saw alien ships gathering and assumed invasion. The aliens saw human weapons and assumed conquest. Each side's preparations only reinforced the other's fears, pushing them closer to a war that no one actually wanted. Elder Council member Zarthine received the emergency transmission from Navigator Veltar with a mixture of disbelief and horror. In 300 years of galactic exploration, the Zephyrian people had never encountered anything like this report about the humans. You are certain about these observations? Zarthine asked, her voice carrying across the quantum communication link to Veltar's ship. Completely certain, Elder, Veltar replied. These humans have built their entire civilization around warfare. They possess weapons capable of planetary destruction, and they are actively training every member of their population for combat. Zarthine felt a deep worry settle in her mind. The Galactic Council of Peaceful Worlds represented 47 different species, all of whom had chosen cooperation over conflict. The discovery of a militaristic species like humanity threatened everything they had built. I'm calling an emergency session of the Council, Zarthine announced. Continue your observations, but do not engage with these humans until we decide how to respond. Within hours, representatives from 12 different species had gathered in the council chambers. The meeting hall, usually filled with discussions of trade agreements and cultural exchanges, now buzzed with fear and uncertainty. The implications are clear, announced Ambassador Krelthan of the Andorian Republic. If these humans are as aggressive as reported, they could threaten every peaceful world in this region of space. We must consider containment, suggested Representative Mordek from the Centauri Alliance. Perhaps we can establish a blockade around their territory to prevent them from expanding. Containment may not be enough, warned Defense Coordinator Vexara, one of the few council members with military experience. If they are truly preparing for galactic war, they may already be too dangerous to leave alone. Elder Zarthine listened to the discussions with growing alarm. The council had never faced a situation like this before. Their entire philosophy was based on the belief that all intelligent species would eventually choose peace. The existence of humanity challenged that fundamental assumption. I propose we send a larger diplomatic fleet, Zarthine finally said. We need more information before we make any permanent decisions about these humans. The council agreed to dispatch Admiral Yeltanis with a fleet of 200 ships representing 12 different species. Their mission would be to assess the human threat and determine whether diplomatic solutions were possible. On New Eden, long-range sensor operator Gary Miller was the first to detect the massive alien fleet approaching their system. He stared at his instruments in disbelief, checking the readings 3 times before accepting what he was seeing. Administrator Morrison, Gary called over the communication system, his voice shaking slightly. You need to see this immediately. Jake Morrison arrived in the sensor room within minutes, followed by Lisa Carter and Dr. Kelly Wright. When they saw the display, all 3 felt their hearts sink. How many ships? Jake asked quietly. Over 200, Gary replied. Maybe as many as 250. They're organized in battle formations and moving directly toward us. Lisa Carter studied the tactical display with her experienced military eye. This is the largest invasion fleet in recorded history. They're not coming to talk. Dr. Kelly Wright felt a mixture of fear and determination. Then we need to finish our preparations immediately. How much time do we have? At their current speed, they'll arrive in 4 days, Gary answered. Jake activated the colony-wide communication system. All personnel, this is Administrator Morrison. We are now under Protocol 7 emergency status. All civilians report to designated shelter areas. All military personnel report to your assigned stations. This is not a drill. Across New Eden, people responded with the efficiency of years of training. Families gathered their emergency supplies and moved to underground shelters that had been carved deep into the planet's rock. Workers at the weapons factories increased their production schedules, knowing that every additional torpedo or energy cell could make the difference between survival and destruction. Dr. Kelly Wright rushed to her laboratory where her team was working frantically to complete their most advanced defensive systems. Alan Torres was calibrating the colony's main energy shield projectors, while other scientists prepared quantum torpedoes for loading into the defensive platforms. Status report? Kelly called as she entered the lab. Shields are at 60% efficiency. Alan replied without looking up from his controls. We need at least 2 more days to complete the full installation. We don't have 2 more days, Kelly said grimly. We have 4 days until they arrive, but we need to be ready to fight before then. In the Weapons Control Center, Ryan Blake was coordinating the final preparations of New Eden's defenses. His teams were installing the last of the plasma cannon arrays while other groups prepared the colony's small fleet of fighter ships. How many functional weapons do we have? Ryan asked his weapons specialist, Kate Wilson. 12 orbital defense platforms, each with quantum torpedoes and energy cannons. Kate replied, checking her list. 36 ground-based plasma batteries, and 18 fighter ships. Ryan knew these numbers were not enough to stop a fleet of 200 alien ships, but they would make the attackers pay a heavy price for their victory. Make sure every weapon is tested and ready. Check all ammunition supplies and energy reserves. Engineer Ben Hughes was working in the colony's main power facility, pushing their generators to maximum output. The defensive shields and weapons would need enormous amounts of energy, and he was not sure their power systems could handle the load. We're going to have to choose, Ben told Jake when the administrator visited the power station. We can have full shields or full weapons, but not both at the same time. Jake felt the weight of another impossible decision. How long can we maintain full power to everything? Maybe 6 hours, Ben estimated. After that, we'll have to start shutting down systems. Meanwhile, on the approaching Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Yeltanis was reviewing the intelligence reports about the human colony. What she read filled her with dread. These humans have been preparing for this confrontation, she told her staff officers. Their entire colony is designed as a military fortress. What are your orders, Admiral? Asked Fleet Captain Morvex. We maintain defensive formation and attempt communication when we arrive, Yeltanis replied. Our mission is to assess and contain, not to destroy. But if these humans attack us, we will defend ourselves. The Admiral studied the tactical displays showing her fleet's approach. She had more ships than any Zephyrian commander had ever led into a potential battle. But she was not confident about the outcome. The humans had spent years preparing for this kind of fight, while her people had spent centuries avoiding conflict. Communications specialist Amy Foster and Dr. Carl Stone were working desperately to establish some kind of dialogue with the approaching fleet. They had managed to decode more of the alien language, but the messages they were receiving filled them with confusion. They keep talking about assessment and containment, Amy told Jake during one of their briefings. It sounds like they're coming to judge us for something. Judge us for what? Jake asked. I think, Carl said slowly. They believe we are a threat to other civilizations. Their messages suggest they see us as dangerous aggressors who need to be stopped. Jake felt a moment of understanding. They think we're the bad guys. That's exactly what I think, Carl confirmed. To them, we look like a militaristic species preparing to conquer the galaxy. Jake realized that both sides were trapped in a deadly misunderstanding. But with a massive alien fleet only days away, there might not be time to explain the truth. New Eden would have to prepare for the fight of their lives. Dr. Kelly Wright was running final tests on the quantum communication interceptor when she heard something that made her stop everything she was doing. The device had been designed to monitor alien transmissions, but what she was hearing now changed everything. Amy, Carl. Get down here immediately, Kelly called over the communication system. Amy Foster and Dr. Carl Stone arrived in the laboratory within minutes, finding Kelly staring at her computer screen with an expression of shock and confusion. Listen to this, Kelly said, playing back the intercepted transmission. I've been monitoring their internal communications, and this is what their fleet commanders are saying to each other. The recorded alien voices filled the room, and Carl translated as they listened. They're talking about their peaceful exploration mission and their fear of militant human expansion. They're discussing how to protect other civilizations from what they call human aggression. Amy felt her stomach drop. They think we're the aggressors. There's more, Kelly continued, playing another recording. They're talking about their history of peaceful contact with other species. They mention 47 different civilizations, all of whom chose cooperation over conflict. Carl translated more of the conversation. They're saying they've never encountered a militaristic species before. They're actually afraid of us. The three scientists looked at each other as the full implications became clear. The massive alien fleet approaching New Eden was not an invasion force. It was a defensive response to what they perceived as a threat from humanity. We have to tell Administrator Morrison, Amy said. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian flagship, Communications Officer Yelmeth was having a similar revelation. She had been monitoring human transmissions when she intercepted internal communications from the New Eden colony. Admiral Yeltanis, Yelmeth called urgently. I need you to hear this immediately. Admiral Yeltanis arrived at the communications station, where Yelmeth played back the intercepted human transmissions. The translation devices worked slowly, but the meaning was becoming clear. They're talking about defensive preparations against potential alien threats, Yelmeth explained. And here they mention protection of human colonies and intelligence reports about hostile alien empires. Admiral Yeltanis listened with growing amazement. They think we are the threat. There's more, Admiral. They keep discussing their preparations as defensive measures. They mention concerns about unknown hostile civilizations and their need to be ready for attacks from space. The Admiral felt a mixture of relief and embarrassment. They were not preparing to attack other worlds. They were preparing to defend themselves from attacks they thought might come. Within hours, both sides had reached the same conclusion. The humans were not preparing for conquest, and the aliens were not mounting an invasion. Both groups had been reacting to their fear of the other. Administrator Jake Morrison made the most difficult decision of his life. He called an emergency meeting with his senior staff and announced his intention to stand down the colony's weapons and invite alien representatives to the surface. "Are you sure about this?" Security Chief Ryan Blake asked. "If you're wrong, they could destroy us all." "If I'm wrong, we were going to be destroyed anyway," Jake replied. "Our weapons cannot stop a fleet of 200 ships. Our only chance is to make them understand that we are not their enemies." Dr. Kelly Wright supported Jake's decision. "The evidence is clear. They are as confused about us as we are about them. If we can establish real communication, we might be able to avoid this entire conflict." Lisa Carter, despite her military training, agreed. "The tactical situation is hopeless if they are truly hostile. Our best strategy is to attempt diplomacy." Jake activated the colony's most powerful transmitter and sent a message directly to the alien fleet. "This is Administrator Jake Morrison of the New Eden colony. We believe there has been a misunderstanding between our peoples. We request a meeting to discuss our respective intentions and concerns." On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Yeltanis received the transmission with cautious hope. After consulting with her senior officers, she agreed to send a small diplomatic party to the colony surface. "We will meet with them," the Admiral announced, "but we will maintain full defensive readiness in case this is some kind of trap." Navigator Veltar volunteered to lead the diplomatic mission, accompanied by Science Officer Kethmore and Cultural Analyst Nethiel. They would take a small transport ship to the colony, while the main fleet remained in orbit. Jake assembled his own diplomatic team, including Dr. Kelly Wright, Communications Specialist Amy Foster, and Security Chief Ryan Blake. Despite the potential dangers, he decided to meet the aliens personally. The meeting took place in New Eden's main conference room, which had been quickly modified to accommodate the different atmospheric needs of both species. When the alien delegates entered, there was a moment of tense silence as both groups studied each other for the first time face to face. Navigator Veltar was the first to speak. His words translated by portable devices both sides had prepared. "We come seeking understanding. Our observations of your colony suggested you were preparing for aggressive expansion into space." "We were preparing for defense," Jake replied carefully. "Our intelligence reports suggested that hostile alien civilizations might exist in this region of space. We established New Eden as a research facility to develop defensive technologies." Science Officer Kethmore looked surprised. "You were afraid of alien attack?" "Yes," Dr. Kelly Wright answered. "We had limited information, but we believed it was better to be prepared than to be helpless if we encountered hostile species." Cultural Analyst Nethiel spoke next. "We observed your people training with weapons and testing what appeared to be offensive military systems. All of our weapons are designed for defense," Security Chief Ryan Blake explained. "We trained our people because we believed we might have to protect our families and our colony from unknown threats." Navigator Veltar felt a deep sense of irony. "We came here because we feared you were a threat to peaceful civilizations. You built your defenses because you feared we might be a threat to you." "It seems," Jake said with a slight smile, "that we were both wrong about each other." The conversation continued for hours as both sides shared their histories, their fears, and their motivations. The Zephyrians explained their philosophy of peaceful exploration and their shock at discovering what they thought was a militaristic species. The humans described their limited knowledge of galactic civilization and their determination to protect themselves from unknown dangers. Engineer Ben Hughes demonstrated some of the colony's defensive technologies, showing how each system was designed to protect rather than attack. Zephyrian scientist Pelvarn shared examples of their peaceful exploration tools and their methods for studying new civilizations without interfering. As understanding grew between the two groups, both sides began to relax. The fear and suspicion that had driven them toward conflict was being replaced by curiosity and mutual respect. "Your people have impressive determination," Navigator Veltar observed. "You prepared for years to face threats you were not even certain existed." "Your people have remarkable peaceful intentions," Jake replied. "You traveled across space to protect civilizations you had never met from threats you thought we represented." The breakthrough moment came when long-range Sensors detected something that neither side had expected. 3 additional ships were approaching the system, but these vessels were different from both human and Zephyrian designs. "Those are not our ships," Admiral Yeltanis reported from orbit. "And they're definitely not human," confirmed Gary Miller from the colony's sensor station. The new arrivals immediately announced their hostile intentions, broadcasting threats to both the human colony and the Zephyrian fleet. For the first time since contact began, humans and Zephyrians faced a common enemy. The new ships appeared on the sensors like dark shadows against the stars. Their design was unlike anything either humans or Zephyrians had seen before. The vessels were angular and aggressive, covered with weapon ports and armor plating that spoke of a civilization built entirely around conquest. "This is War Prime Kexthul of the Vadran Empire," came the transmission in a harsh, threatening voice. "We have been monitoring your communications. Both human and Zephyrian species represent threats to our expansion plans. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." In the New Eden conference room, the human and Zephyrian delegates looked at each other with sudden understanding. This was the real threat they had both been worried about. "How many ships?" Jake Morrison asked, speaking to both his own people and the aliens who had become his unexpected allies. 15 vessels, reported Gary Miller from the sensor station. "But they're heavily armed and their energy signatures are off the charts." Navigator Veltar was speaking rapidly into his communication device, coordinating with Admiral Yeltanis in orbit. "The Admiral says our ships detected the same thing. These Vadrans have weapons powerful enough to destroy both our fleet and your colony." Dr. Kelly Wright felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. For years, she had been preparing for exactly this kind of situation, but she had always imagined facing it alone. Now suddenly they had allies. "What can your ships do against them?" Kelly asked Veltar. "Our vessels have advanced shields and some defensive weapons," Science Officer Kethmore replied. "But we are not a military people. We have never fought a real battle." Security Chief Ryan Blake stepped forward. "But we have. Our people have been training for combat for 15 years. If you can provide the technology, we can provide the tactics." The next few hours became a frantic race against time. The Vadran ships were approaching slowly, apparently confident that neither humans nor Zephyrians could stop them. This gave the new allies precious time to combine their capabilities. Dr. Kelly Wright worked with Zephyrian engineer Technovar to integrate human weapons with alien shield technology. The humans had developed powerful quantum torpedoes, but they lacked the defensive systems to survive a prolonged battle. The Zephyrians had incredible protective shields, but their weapons were designed for scientific research, not warfare. "If we can mount your shield generators on our weapon platforms," Kelly explained, "we can create defensive positions that can withstand their attacks long enough to fight back." Technovar was amazed by human weapon technology. "These quantum torpedoes are incredibly efficient. Our peaceful philosophy prevented us from developing anything like them, but now I see their necessity." In orbit, Admiral Yeltanis was working with Lisa Carter to coordinate a joint defense strategy. The Zephyrian fleet would provide shields and support, while human tactical knowledge guided the battle plan. "Your ships are faster than ours," Lisa explained over the communication link. "If you can draw their fire while our weapons charge, we can hit them from unexpected angles." "This is completely new to us," Admiral Yeltanis admitted. "We have never deliberately engaged in combat before. Just follow our lead," Lisa replied with confidence. "Humans have been studying warfare for thousands of years. Trust us to guide the battle." Communications specialist Amy Foster was working with Zephyrian linguist Veltran to establish real-time translation systems for the battle. If humans and aliens were going to fight together, they needed to understand each other perfectly. "The translation delay is down to less than 1 second," Amy reported. "Commands and status reports should transfer between our forces almost instantly." Engineer Ben Hughes had perhaps the most important job of all. He was integrating Zephyrian power systems with human weapons to create hybrid defensive platforms that combined the best of both technologies. "These alien power cores are incredible," Ben told Jake as they worked. "They can provide 3 times the energy our generators produce. With this much power, our weapons will be devastating." The Vadran fleet continued its steady approach, broadcasting demands for surrender and threats of destruction. War Prime Kexthul seemed to enjoy taunting his intended victims. "Your pathetic alliance cannot save you. the Vedran commander announced. "We have conquered 40 systems. Your worlds will be added to our empire." Jake Morrison made the final preparations for battle. All civilians to deep shelters. All defensive teams to battle stations. Today we find out if our years of preparation were enough. The battle began when the Vedran ships came within range of the hybrid defense platforms. The combined human-Zephyrian weapons fired quantum torpedoes, surrounded by alien energy shields that protected them from Vedran defensive fire. War Prime Kexthul was shocked when his fleet's first attack was completely stopped by shields that seemed impossible for either species to possess. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his weapons officers. "Their defensive systems are unlike anything in our database," came the reply. "They appear to be using hybrid technology." In the New Eden Command Center, Ryan Blake was coordinating the battle with Zephyrian Tactical Officer Kelmarn. The combination of human aggression and alien precision was proving devastatingly effective. "Target their lead ship," Ryan ordered. "Hit them with everything we have." The hybrid weapons platforms fired simultaneously, sending waves of quantum torpedoes protected by Zephyrian shields directly at the Vedran flagship. The alien empire's most powerful ship shuddered under the impact, its armor cracking and its weapon systems failing. Admiral Yeltanis led her fleet in a coordinated attack that used human tactical principles with Zephyrian technology. Her ships moved in patterns designed by Lisa Carter, using their superior speed to confuse the Vedran gunners while delivering precision strikes at critical targets. "This is incredible," the Admiral reported to the surface. "Your tactical knowledge combined with our capabilities is far more effective than either of us could achieve alone." The battle lasted for 6 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt once the hybrid systems came online. The Vedrans had expected to face either peaceful aliens or primitive humans. Instead, they encountered a combination that was greater than the sum of its parts. War Prime Kexthul's flagship was the last to be destroyed. As his ship died around him, the Vedran commander transmitted a final message filled with disbelief and rage. "This is impossible. No alliance should be this effective. You have ruined everything." When the battle ended, both humans and Zephyrians felt a mixture of exhaustion and amazement. They had not only survived, but had achieved a complete victory against an enemy that had conquered 40 other systems. In the aftermath, Jake Morrison and Navigator Veltar stood together on New Eden's surface, looking up at the stars where the combined human-Zephyrian fleet was establishing orbital defenses. "We make a good team," Jake observed. "Better than good," Veltar replied. "Your species brings tactical knowledge and determination that we lack. Our technology and peaceful philosophy provide capabilities you need. Together we are stronger than either of us could be alone." Dr. Kelly Wright was already planning the next phase. "We should establish a permanent alliance. There are probably other species like the Vedrans out there, and there are certainly other peaceful civilizations that need protection." Admiral Yeltanis agreed when the proposal reached her. "The Galactic Council will be very interested in this partnership. We have learned that sometimes strength is necessary to preserve peace." Within weeks, New Eden became the headquarters for the Human-Zephyrian Alliance, the first military partnership in Zephyrian history. The colony that had been preparing for war became the center of a new kind of peace, one that was protected by the willingness to fight for it. The irony was not lost on anyone involved. Humanity's preparation for war, which had nearly caused a conflict with peaceful aliens, had ultimately enabled them to protect peace throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians learned that their peaceful philosophy was stronger when backed by those willing to defend it. As the alliance grew to include other species who needed protection from empires like the Vedrans, Jake Morrison often reflected on how misunderstanding had almost led to tragedy. But proper understanding had created something beautiful. The galaxy was becoming a safer place, because humans and aliens had learned to combine their strengths instead of fearing their differences.